What is up, everybody? Welcome to Mad Blood. If you're not new around here, welcome back. If you are new around here, then welcome on in. It's good to see some new faces in the channel always, so welcome. Good to have you. But today, I am going to be talking about Alien Romulus, and specifically, part of this video is going to be in regards to why Alien Romulus surprised me in a lot of different ways. So, going into watching this movie, there were a few things I wanted to see without a doubt. I wanted a certain type of a feel, a certain type of a grit to this movie. And I will say, right off the bat, sitting down, I'm getting a lot of that right away, which was great. So if that's something you were hoping for, because of course, this movie, like they told us, was going to be set in between the events of Alien and Aliens. So like me, a big fan of those two movies, some of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made, I was hoping for a similar feel. So right off the bat in this movie, we're getting a lot of kind of quietness, which is very similar to the introduction, the opening to Alien. A lot of quiet moments, eeriness, kind of setting the tone, lingering shots, which is great. Loving that. There's also a moment in the beginning that kind of, ties things back to the original in some ways. I'm not going to spoil that, of course. But yeah, just using Fede Alvarez, using the silence of this movie to his advantage to kind of set the tone for the rest of the movie, I thought was great right off the bat. Also, one of the things, like I already kind of mentioned, the grit, but not only that, the look of the movie was something that I knew was going to be huge for me. I was just hoping that they were not going to give us a product that was squeaky clean. Yes, some of the movies in this franchise that do have that kind of squeaky clean, futuristic look can be fun. But the vibe that I want is that gritty, blue-collar look, any sort of a ship we're on. I want it to look like it's been used. And I'm happy to say in this movie, that is what we get in a lot of ways, which is amazing. So hats off to the team for that aspect too. I loved that in Romulus. That was great. Now, going into Romulus as well, when I talked about some of my reactions to the previous trailers for this movie, in those videos, I mentioned my fear about a younger cast. Because, and I didn't look up the ages of the people who were in this movie before the movie, but they looked pretty young. And I was getting that feel like it was going to be a young feeling movie, which is kind of a direction a lot of the studios have gone, Blumhouse and some others. So I was worried about that in some ways. That doesn't mean it's going to be a bad movie. It's just a different feel, especially when you compare it to the original two movies, which are far and away, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, the best movies in the franchise and some of the best, like I said, sci-fi movies ever made. So I was worried about that. Because if you go back and look at the original Alien compared to this cast, let's just talk about it for a second and run down the ages from the original Alien. And I know a lot of us like to say, man, when we go back and watch movies, people in their 30s look like they're in their 50s back in the day. You even watch sports, like you'll watch old baseball highlights. I saw a highlight the other day of Nolan Ryan pitching. He's like half bald and looks like a 8th grade science teacher. And he's probably 28. But the ages in Alien weren't exactly like that. So everybody in Romulus, essentially, is in their 20s, early to mid-20s. The original Alien, let me just run down it. Tom Skerritt, 46 in Alien. Sigourney Weaver, 30, the youngest. Yaphet Kotto, 40. John Hurt, 39. Veronica Cartwright, also 30. Ian Holm, 48 years old. So a different feel, without a doubt, right? These are people who have, the 30-year-olds, not so much, but the older folks have been through some shit. They've seen some life. They're probably, kind of just gristled and tired of working on these ships. So I was worried about that. But it didn't hold back the movie too much. But just because the cast was young doesn't necessarily mean the cast was bad. But I want to specifically point out Cailee Spaeny. She plays Rain, the main character in this movie, almost like the Ripley, and she's great. I recognized her right away from Civil War, which she was also good in. That was a big movie, so she had a big year. Cailee is very good in this. She immediately is one of those actors that from here on out, I'm going to actively go and watch her future projects because she's that good. But I will say, outside of Rain's character, all of the other characters in the movie are very forgettable in my opinion. The only other character that I would say maybe is not quite as forgettable is probably Andy, just because he gets so much screen time and he is a very, very important character in the storyline. But outside of that, really Rain's the only character that really is very memorable for me. I also really like where a part of this movie is set in. It's set in this like unforgiving territory, this planet that doesn't see the sun. It's a mining colony. Love that. It immediately makes me want to see more of that and get more history behind that. And just the history behind the characters too, I thought was interesting to me. I thought that was great. Also, about halfway through the movie, they definitely crank that horror up. Just the horror elements, not only, but the action as well, which I thought was fun. There's a moment where the characters have to be really, really quiet and sneak through some stuff, which I thought was pretty good. The tension in that was fun, and I had a good time with that. And like most Alien movies, I mean, something you can say without a doubt with this franchise is a lot of the movies take swings. They try to push the story forward in some kind of a way. You know, they come up with some new ideas. That's something that without a doubt we see in this franchise. And in this movie, they do try that. They take some of the elements from the first and the second movie, and they do add some new things. They add some new reasons why maybe the xenomorphs are important, and they add some new reasons why they would potentially want to bring these things back. So with all that said, this movie does have some flaws. So this movie is not a remake, but there are definitely some moments in this movie that feel like a remake in a lot of ways. There's some moments where they almost just redo certain little tidbits. If you're a big fan of the first two movies, you're going to recognize right away because they're moments that are pivotal moments in those movies that they essentially reuse in this movie, which is a little bit weird. I get the fan service. I get the fact that those of us who are big fans of the original two are going to sit down and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun. That's a look back. But to me, when it becomes a little too much, I don't love that. And to kind of piggyback off of what I just said, there's also lines reused from the franchise that are some of the most iconic lines in all of the franchise without question, that are just reused in this movie, which feels cheap to me. And now towards the end of the movie, although it is really fun, and there's definitely some great moments towards the end, it's definitely not without flaws. There are some moments where you definitely have to kind of suspend your disbelief because when the characters' backs are completely against the wall, some things do happen in this movie that are a little bit ridiculous in a lot of different ways. Now, to avoid spoilers as best as I can, in this movie, they do use a little bit of anti-aging CGI in this movie. And I will say, it is not good at all. Guys, can we just stop doing that stuff until it's ready? That technology is just not quite ready yet. If you have to, absolutely need to, okay. But don't force it into the story unless you pretty much absolutely have to. In a movie like this, Fede Alvarez has even said he tries to use as much practical as he can in this movie, which is amazing. I love that. Everything in this movie essentially looks very, very realistic, except for the one moment that is clearly CGI and distracting to me. Now, to kind of wrap things up, so to me, when I think about what movies are rewatchable, they kind of check a few boxes. Sometimes all of the boxes, sometimes one, sometimes two boxes. Just depends. Some of those things are a great story, great action, great characters, or really the movie just kind of makes you feel some kind of a way. Every time you put it on, it kind of just gives you a feeling that you love. Either it's an unsettling feeling that you enjoy if you're kind of sick like me in some ways, or a cozy kind of a feeling. And to me, with this movie, it's still very early on. I only saw this movie yesterday. One of the things I can say without a doubt with this movie, it checks one of these boxes, unquestionably so, which is the rewatchability because it gives me a certain feeling to this movie. Without a doubt, after watching this movie, I think to myself, I want to just be transported back into this world. I just want to look at this stuff. I just want to look at the ship. I just want to like kind of creep around in this eeriness and just see everything. See not only the mining colony a little bit more, but be with some of these characters on the ship and just see everything, because this movie, like I said, does a great job kind of bringing back that grit and grime from the original 2 movies, which I love. Some of the other things, a little bit questionable, the story, some of the action, some of the other things, which are fun and which are very, very good, but there are some questionable things in those ways. But without a doubt, to me, the feel of this movie is incredible. And really, what surprised me the most about this movie, though, is probably how well Fede Alvarez and the production were able to recreate the look of the original 2 movies, which I absolutely loved. Now, it's way too early to tell you whether or not Alien Romulus is my favorite movie of 2024, but one thing I can 1000% tell you is I'm going to go back and rewatch this movie tomorrow on the biggest screen possible, because I just want to be transported back into this world for 120 minutes. So thanks so much for watching my thoughts on Alien Romulus. I had a very good time watching this movie. If you're into the Alien franchise or just sci-fi in general, highly recommend watching it because it's a very good time. Props to everybody involved with making this movie. Make sure you subscribe because I'm going to have a full Alien Romulus spoiler party on Sunday, a live stream, probably for about an hour and a half or so, talking about all the spoilers with this movie. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you tune in on that. But thanks again for watching, everybody. Subscribe also because I'm going to have a full Alien franchise ranking coming very soon as well. But my name is Matt. Thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.